We're told that international law is a shield. It protects nations, holds leaders accountable, and defends civilians in times of war. But look at history. Look at the news right now. Does that promise match reality? If international law is so powerful, why do we see conflicts erupt, borders redrawn, and civilians suffer, often with no real consequences for the aggressors? It feels like we're all participating in a global myth, a story we want to believe is true. So today, let's pull back the curtain and ask, what is international law really, and who does it actually protect? So what is this system we call international law? At its core, it's a web of agreements designed to bring order to a chaotic world. You have the UN Charter, which forbids aggressive war. You have treaties on everything from trade to human rights. You have the famous Geneva Conventions, which set the rules for armed conflict. And you have international courts, like the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, or ICC. The fundamental promise of all this is simple but profound. No country is above the law. Power is meant to be restrained by rules, and the sovereignty of every nation is respected. It's a beautiful idea. But as we're about to see, the idea and the reality are two very different things. Here's the critical flaw, the central weakness that undermines the entire system. International law has no global police force. The International Criminal Court can issue an arrest warrant for a leader, but it has no officers to go and make that arrest. The International Court of Justice can rule that a country's actions are illegal, but it can't force that country to stop. Enforcement is completely outsourced. It depends entirely on the political will of individual states, on their militaries, their economic power, and their willingness to act. The result? Law only seems to apply when the most powerful states on the planet allow it to. It's like having traffic laws, but no police to pull anyone over. The rules exist on paper, but on the road, the biggest truck still does whatever it wants. This leads directly to the problem of selective justice. If enforcement depends on the powerful, then who do you think gets prosecuted? The pattern is impossible to ignore. Leaders from smaller, less powerful nations, particularly in Africa, often find themselves in the dock at the ICC. But when have we seen a leader from a major global power face similar consequences for an invasion or a controversial military campaign? It just doesn't happen. Take the US indictment against Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. While it's based on domestic law, it highlights a trend where justice is applied one way to adversaries and another way to allies or to oneself. This isn't a critique of any single nation. It's an observation of the system itself. When a law applies to some but not to others, it stops feeling like law and starts feeling like a political tool, and that's when it loses its most precious asset: legitimacy. And if you want proof that the system was designed this way, look no further than the UN Security Council veto. It's like a legalized, get-out-of-jail-free card. 5 permanent members: the United States, Russia, China, the United Kingdom, and France had the power to block any substantive resolution. This means they can single-handedly stop investigations into their own actions or the actions of their allies. They can veto sanctions, they can prevent military interventions, and they can shut down any attempt to hold them accountable on the world stage. So let us ask a simple question. How can we claim that international law is about equality and justice for all, when 5 nations are legally written into the rules as being untouchable? It's not a flaw in the system. It's a feature. The most powerful players built themselves an escape hatch from the very beginning. Now, things are getting even more complicated. When international institutions fail to act, countries are increasingly turning to their own legal systems to pursue justice across borders. We're seeing national courts issue indictments against foreign officials and leaders, a practice known as universal jurisdiction. On the surface, this might sound like a good thing if the international system won't act. At least someone will, but it creates a new kind of chaos. Imagine a world where every country could legally indict the leaders of every other country. Law becomes weaponized. A political disagreement today could become a criminal charge tomorrow. This completely undermines the idea of a unified, international legal framework. Instead of one set of rules for everyone, we get a messy, contradictory web of national laws, all competing with each other, turning the global stage into a legal battlefield. Another major problem is how international law evolves. Much of it isn't written down in a single book. It's based on custom and precedent. What states have done in the past helps define what is considered legal or illegal in the future. But this has a dangerous side effect. Once a powerful nation breaks an established rule, say, by launching a preemptive war or ignoring a court ruling, it creates a new precedent. That one-time exception doesn't just disappear. Other countries see it and think, well, if they can do it, why can't we? What was once a clear red line becomes blurred. The exception becomes a template. Over time, the law becomes less about following fixed rules and more about who can tell the most convincing story to justify their actions. Law becomes a battle of narratives, not a system of principles. So after all this, who does international law actually protect? Let's be honest, it works best when the interests of powerful nations align. It's incredibly effective at regulating things like international trade, mail delivery and air travel because everyone benefits from a stable, predictable system. It protects diplomats through diplomatic immunity. It provides a framework for cooperation on issues like climate change or health crises. In times of peace and stability, it works reasonably well, but it fails spectacularly at its most important job, preventing war and protecting the vulnerable during major conflicts. It fails when a powerful nation decides its national interests are more important than the rules. It protects the system, but it often fails to protect the people. Ultimately, international law might be best understood as a psychological illusion. It provides a language of legitimacy, a moral vocabulary that governments use to justify their actions to the world and to their own people. When a country takes action, it will almost always say, "We are acting in accordance with international law." They use the language of the law, but they only act when the law happens to suit their strategic interests. This creates a comforting illusion of a world governed by order and reason. It makes us feel like there's a referee on the field, even if that referee has no whistle and can be ignored at will. The law isn't stopping them. It's just giving them the script. This brings us to the real question we need to ask ourselves. Should we be pushing for reform, or should we just accept the reality of the system? Can international law ever truly be reformed to have real enforcement power? Or is that just a fantasy? Perhaps we need to adjust our expectations. Maybe international law was never meant to be an iron shield that could stop a tank. Maybe it's more of a soft framework, a set of ideals that encourages restraint, but cannot force it. So I ask you, when you look at the world, what do you think we should be demanding from this system? Should we expect protection, or is the best we can hope for merely a suggestion of restraint? Let's end with a clear, sober thought. International law as it exists today does not stop power. It channels it, it shapes it, and it gives it a language to speak. But it only truly limits power when power itself chooses restraint. Perhaps we've been looking at it all wrong. The law was never meant to replace Purity. It was only ever meant to try and civilize it. Whether it has succeeded is the question we're all still trying to answer. Thank you for watching. If this made you think, consider subscribing for more deep dives.